Everybody, today we'll be doing part 4 of Tilikum, from the killer whale from the movie Blackfish, which has been really ripping up the headlines lately because just a few days ago, 2 days ago, SeaWorld announced they are phasing out the killer whale program at their different parks. So clearly the voice of people saying this is a problem, this is wrong, this is not right, had an impact. You can and do make a difference. I'm impressed. Everyone that did protesting, that spoke out against it, all the organizations that are involved, outstanding job for taking this action to help these whales so hopefully in the future they're not captured, taken away from their families, brought to places where they get no stimulation, no social environment, no family bonding, and turn into lunatics and psychopaths because no one really thinks that these animals actually have feelings and have emotions and are complex and complicated like we are as humans. Okay, here we go, part 4. And by the way, for the first 3 parts, I've been really impressed. The number of people that are watching the different videos, keep on watching. We want your comments. I love feedback. Here we go. I want to break down. This is going to be about breaking things down. I'm going to culminate when I'm going to go down with explaining exactly what this whale Tilikum suffered from clinically. But I want to get a couple of more points in before I get to that part. Here we go. John Jett, who said this, he was one of the former workers there. He said, why was Tilikum allowed to be created, in a sense, kept on going decade after decade? Because the industry has a vested interest in selling toys and tickets. Listen, I went to SeaWorld. I saw the shows with my family. I bought my kid one of those plush SeaWorld animals. Why not? You're a decent father. You're going to buy one. My kid liked it. I bought the tickets for the show. I was in the splash zone. It was exciting. It was fun. So yeah, these whales attract people. So tickets and merchandise go hand in hand. I get why they keep them around. And this worker realized this. John Jett said that. Now, when it came to the death of this last worker, this last trainer, unfortunately, what did they say of Dawn? They said it was her fault, her fault. Now, neurosurgeon made a comment. She said, whales in captivity are a ticking time bomb and are emotionally damaged by being in the pens. Again, small area. See, we work on the fly. We just transfer on the fly. It's amazing. Okay, let me get my, here we go. You have these 5 to 6 ton animals like this. This is the whale in pens that they can't even move around in. They can't even turn around in. Who wouldn't go nuts? Here is a person myself, when I'm in my office too long, I get cuckoo and I have to walk around sometimes just to stretch my legs. I could not imagine sitting down and being stuck all day in a pen. I can't even turn around and really stretch my legs. That's what they're in, those kinds of pens. Of course they're going to be emotionally damaged. It's like being in prison. Think about it, the same context of being locked up in a tiny cell day after day. You go nuts. That's what it's like for these animals. Now, a trainer finally said, why was Tilikum killing? Because he's frustrated. Now, we're not giving a free pass to people who murder in cold-blooded humans. But the way he lived his life, why were they shocked that he acted the way that he did? It was inevitable he was going to lash out. Who else is he going to lash out? People in the audience? He can't climb up those stairs. But boy, he can make those trainers' lives really, really miserable. Unfortunately, that's how he acted it out, by killing the 2 different trainers and all the attacks that he and the other SeaWorld whales did because they're frustrated, they're angry, and it's their anger boiling over, and no one picked up on this. That's what I found so amazing. No one put 2 and at least 1 and 1, forget about 2 and 2. No one put anything together to realize this is crazy. Now, what they do to Tilikum in the movie? They isolated him. Even better. So the little communication he had, the little bit of whale gossip he can catch up on. Hey, that's a hot-looking trainer, huh? Hey, huh? What do you think of that blonde in the 3rd row, huh? Hey, what kind of fish did you have today? I had herring. You have mackerel? How about a lox? Something a little different. Trade it, maybe a whitefish. Change our diet. A little bit of gossip whale to whale gossip, a little bit of rubbing against each other, communication, blowhole, gone. They put him by himself. You do that to political prisoners to break them, and they did that to the most aggressive, unhappy, mentally mistreated animal in their whole capacity, in their whole pod. They stuck him by himself. So what does he do? He does this. This is what he does all day. He just lays there because he's clinically depressed. He's having mental breakdown. He went cuckoo. So he sits there for hour after hour, barely moving, because who does that? People who are in assisted living, when they stop caring about life. I visit those kinds of people. They're like this, 72 years old. They had a stroke, they got dementia, they got Alzheimer's, they lost their loved one, they lost their husband, they lost their spouse. Assisted living, oh, that's a death sentence, I don't want to go there. They're so unhappy. Nursing homes, assisted living, what do they do all day? What's the biggest issue? Isolation and loneliness. What do you say to them as a social worker? Please go out of your room and be around other people. Join other people. Don't be by yourself, because that's going to kill you the fastest. That's going to make you nuts. The only thing you have is your head to talk to. You run out of things to think about. So Tilikum, like this, hour after hour, barely moving. He's clinically depressed. He needs Prozac in his fish. That's what they should be giving him. Lots of Prozac, because he's so depressed. Okay, now, trainers at the end of the movie finally realized this was a huge mistake and wanted to see them released. And in the end, what did the judge say? The court ruling came down. You now have to have barriers. You can no longer be in the water with these whales. You have to have a barrier and then feed the fish or go over. But you can't be in the water anymore with them because they're seen as too dangerous. But now with this new ruling, and SeaWorld actually saying they're going to phase out the orca part and go into a conversation mode, what does that mean? No one really knows as of yet. But it's amazing to me what the power this movie had to change a multi-billion-dollar-a-year corporation, to change its marketing, and to change its show because of slumping ticket sales. Impressive. Now, I want to first break down what is PTSD, what are the biggest parts of it. All right. Person experienced events that involve actual threatened death. Let's check that one with Tilikum. Mother was taken away from him, and I think killed in the movie. The person's response involved fear, helplessness, horror. In children, disorganized or agitated behavior. I'd have to go on that, check on that one again. Here he was, a little whale, baby whale. Mother ripped away from him. The pod ripped away from him. He's pulled in a net with no idea where he's going. He's screaming. The whales are screaming. And he was a little baby, maybe a ton baby, 1,000-pound baby, but he's still a baby. Fear, helplessness, horror. Okay, now, what happens again? How's a traumatic event re-experienced? Okay, recollections of the event, images, thoughts, or perceptions. They got a brain. Their brain is bigger than ours. I would think you'd remember that over and over again. Dreams of the event. Well, we know that these animals do sleep. Okay. Acting and feeling the traumatic event was reoccurring. Well, he's around other whales that have the same experience. They got to be talking to each other. Which mom were you ripped from? Which pod were you in that was completely decimated? Who are you? What part of the country are you from? Which pod did you come from? Who did you hang out when you were a kid before you were taken away from your family? Your mom was shipped to a different park and now you're left here, you're abandoned? Oh, welcome. How you doing? You're in foster care too. We can relate. Okay, intense psychological distress at exposure were external cues. Hit them, don't feed them. And no mommy. I'd say check again. So far, this whale is really racking up the points. Physiological reactivity or exposure to internal or external cues resemble an aspect. Can you be my mommy? Can you be my mommy? Can you be my mommy? Sure, I'm going to rake you across the side of you because you're not my kid. I don't want to be here any more than you do, but I'm smaller and more nimble than you, so I'm going to cut you up with my teeth. Yeah, that would be pretty good. And then you have this. You have difficulty falling or staying asleep. You saw that. Irritability or outbursts of anger. I'm going to go on a limb with that one. Difficulty concentrating. What did they say? He wasn't focusing on the task that he was given. Hypervigilance. You saw that. Around that tank. Exaggerated startle response. Here, he didn't like what was told to him. He didn't like what was given to him. He reacted. And this disturbance causes clinically significant distress and impairment in social, occupational, or other important areas of functioning. Wow, amazing. And here, last piece. What's the persistent avoidance of stimuli? Here you have diminished interest or participation in significant activities. He couldn't do. Normally they swim 100 miles a day. Here he got maybe 400 yards. Okay? Detachment or estrangement from others. These whales are social beings. And guess what? He no longer was around anyone that he even can relate to. They're social. Those pods stay together for life. And what the SeaWorld was doing? They were taking whales from different populations all over the world. You're an instant family. Good luck. I've seen that happen about 1,000 times, and it fails. Restricted range of affect. Unable to have loving feelings. Well, why would he? No one around him loved him. They all treated him horribly because he was a different whale from a different pod. In a sense, he was a stranger. Let's mess him up. Let's hurt him. And they did that quite well over and over and over again. Now, what I want to do is clarify, I want to break this down finally. What did Tilikum suffer from on a clinical level? Here we go. If I was evaluating Tilikum as a clinical social worker, here's what he would have had. This is straight from the DSM-4, now the DSM-5. Here we go. He had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's a given. He had major depressive disorder. Okay. He had, and that was recurrent, by the way, ongoing, messed up. He had acute stress disorder. Every day of his life was, what bad thing is going to happen today to me? Am I going to be hurt? Am I going to be hit? Am I going to have lack of food? I'm going to have another 14-hour night in a pen with no one to talk to and be like, I'm in my floating coffin. He had intermittent explosive disorder. That's what that is. You blow up, you go crazy, you kill. That's what he had. He was waiting, he was seething, he was frustrated, he was angry. He had primary insomnia. Could you sleep in something like that? I couldn't. How could you sleep in that? How could you sleep as a normal person in those stupid pens? It'd be impossible. So far the top 5. PTSD, we just talked about that here. Major depressive disorder, ongoing, recurrent, acute stress disorder, stressed out of his mind, intermittent explosive disorder, and primary insomnia. I guarantee you this whale never had a good night's sleep his whole life since he's been taken out of and put in captivity. Okay, I want to go to the next one. It's not just the first 5. This was not a well-adjusted whale. Okay, he also had antisocial personality disorder. Okay, antisocial is often way overused. It's usually used for like career criminals, sociopaths, psychopaths who have it almost like, that's almost like it's an axis 2. It's like something you're born with. He didn't. he was made into an antisocial person, antisocial whale. Okay? He also had, you're antisocial. It's like, how do you create that? Most people, are just born that way. They're antisocial. It was created for him. He also had, this is all Tilikum, physical abuse of child, ripping him away from his mother and from his family, hitting him, denying him food, subjecting him to being terrible behavior, loneliness, no stimulation, no emotional. There was neglect of child. He was certainly neglected. No mother took care of him. He never was given a hug and a kiss at night, tucked into his, tucked into the ocean with a nice little fish to chew on or a chew toy. Nothing. He also had this, bereavement. B-E-R, let me see if I'm spelling this right. B-E-E-A-R, sorry guys, B-E-R-E. B-E-R-E-A-V-E-M-T, bereavement, the death of his mother, the death of his family, the death of his identity, the death of who Tilikum was. And, last but not least, identity problem. Can you imagine in the wild, he'd have his own pot. He'd get married, he would have his own family, his own girlfriends, his own wives, his own kids. He's the apex predator. He's the master of his game. Instead, he's running around a tiny pen for fish. He doesn't get enough food. Hey, do a trick, Tilly. Splash zone. Jump in the air. Do the loopy-loop. Wave your fin. Wave your dorsal. Wait, that's hanging off to the side. Sorry. We got to put it back with a bobby pin. But he didn't know who he was. He's supposed to be out there in the ocean they do 100 miles a day. And instead, he's swimming around a tiny pen, listening to a tin whistle, and supposed to get excited about it day after day, show after show. They were worried about doing a good show, the trainers. What about this guy? What kind of identity could he possibly have? Here he's the king of the ocean. And instead he's running around like what am I doing here? This is crazy. This is what my life has turned into. At work, we call it snapping, losing it, right? Going postal. It's amazing he only killed 2 people, only had 25 attacks. He didn't know who he was. Now, last thing, so interesting how you see things and they come back again and again and again. This is an article from Smithsonian Magazine about a beluga whale named Nock that the military wanted to use, dolphins and whales to use them for underwater research, for sonar issues against the Soviets, all this and this. According to people that work with this animal, voice deep, with the article, here's a picture of Nock. He learned language. They said they heard him speak language to the divers and researchers working with him. And there's an incident where he said actually the words "get out" to a diver who left the water, came out of the water and said to the people around him, who said "get out of the water"? And they were like, we didn't say it. None of us said it. They think he was convinced that the animal, the people who work on this article were convinced that it came from Nock, who mimicked human speech and learned about 30, 40 words. Now, there's a little discussion. Is it true, not true? Did it really happen, not happen? But it's so interesting that here, another animal with complex thinking, they're convinced that he wanted it because, again, and he was taken away from his family, small group of animals, didn't really know each other, these belugas. They try and create a family, but he looked at the humans as his family. So here's the last. I want to say these 2 comments. This is from an article. Lori Marino, lecturer at the Department of Psychology, who specializes in Cetacean, C-E-T-A-C-E-A-N, intelligence and brain evolution. Manipulating one's vocal tract to produce a desired effect is very, very sophisticated. Their brains are different. Their cortex is completely different. And there's so much cortical tissue that does more than just receive. They are individuals. They have lives to lead in social relationships. They have families. And guess what? They have some really good memories. That's something places like SeaWorld doesn't want to touch, because then you start getting into issues people don't want to relate to. That people can relate to. If you see these animals as people, then to see them in captivity is going to bother you. And that was the point she was trying to make. And here's one last other comment. From another trainer at SeaWorld earlier than this documentary of Blackfish. Being in captivity actually mutes their senses, says Samantha Berg at SeaWorld, a trainer from 1990 to 1993, told this author. It's so loud. These are talking about the beluga whales. They don't need to use their echolocation because they've been in the same tank every day and they already know all the boundaries of their world. I didn't realize that. You're in a tiny enclosed area. You're bouncing off signals. You already know what's going on around you. When I was working with them, my impression was they weren't all there. They were deeply bored, disinterested. They were like people with PTSD. I don't know what belugas are like in the wild, but they weren't really home. They were staring at me through a veil. Everyone, here's the point. These animals, this animal, these belugas, these orcas, they're bright, they're smart. In some ways, they're not that distant from us. And they think and they're creative. And I want to do with this part 4 was to show everybody how all of this stuff relates. It's relatable. And when you treat an animal in such a way to be shocked it's going to go crazy and become murderous, you're kidding yourself. The same way in closing, with counseling, with therapy. Be creative, ask questions. Don't just assume. I thought, I was curious, I wasn't sure. Ask questions, find experts, find mentors, by people you can relate to, get the help that you need, and just the way this could have been avoided, this tragedy could have been avoided. A lot of things in our own life can be done as well. But be creative, be aggressive, be your own advocate. Don't rely on what you hear around you with therapy. A lot of it's not so great. Use it for your own advantage. Use these tapes for your own advantage. That's the whole goal. Educate the public for prevention. Again, I'm done here. Part 4. Please watch and give us your viewpoints. Please turn into Sunridge of Nevada on YouTube. Also on Google. I've had people watching us on Google as well. Watch. We want your opinion. We want your thoughts. Thank you.